Good morning again. We should start because a little bit late and we have the two more panels. The first keynotes which we invite from the EC is Mr. Oliver Onidi, which is not really need in Europe to present Mr. Onidi. Everybody knows. And he has a very, very big CV, which I am not going to repeat it here. Many of you know him. He's a director of the Innovating Transport and Sustainable Mobility and Trans-European Network, the DG Move. Mr. Onidi is with us, and thanks to him, come over here and give the support of the official support for the first time to EVS27. And thanks to that, we have a lot of big projects reached with the big budget to the EVS27 to hear about the results and dissemination of this project in EVS27. We choose IPC International Program Committee, choose more than 98 of them. Mr. Onidi is talking about vision of the EC in 22 and policy of the electric mobility. Mr. Onidi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good morning again. I reiterate that for me it is a particular honor to be here with all of you. As I mentioned in the opening remarks, we believe that we are at a particular critical time in order to promote and indeed to deploy alternative fuels in the transport sector. We have, of course, to consider that there are a number of different fuels available, and our overall policy activities have as an objective to continue to be technologically neutral, very important, but of course to try to define the best possible mix of policies in order to deploy those new alternatives. The convergence factor at this critical time is very fortunate. We really do have a convergence between policy measures geared at lowering emissions, different set of emissions, noise reduction. We also have very aggressive policies in terms of diversifications of the sources of energy we do consume in the European Union. And we have an additional impetus, and I think that was very, very clear when listening to the public officials this morning at the opening. These new technologies and electric vehicles in particular offer a fantastic possibility to boost economic growth and the overall competitiveness of a very important sector. Why? Because these are new products, but also potential products in order to change the way we actually use transport means. So it goes much beyond the product as such. In all these settings, of course, a number of activities are being pursued at global and European level. I'm not going to give you a catalogue of all measures or tell you what the most successful measures are. We have developed very useful tools through a number of projects. Some of those projects are present in the exhibition. And again, congratulations for the exhibition. I think it provides a fantastic window of what is available today and also the definite confirmation that we're not talking about futurology but of very concrete projects. So basically looking at some of the stands but also speaking to some of my colleagues and most in particular Mr. von Onacker, who is here in front, who will also be animating one of the sessions later on in the conference. You will get all the details on the EU Observatory for Alternative Fuels with the large electric vehicle components. You also have in stand 158 a demonstration of what is being called the electric vehicle radar, which gives you a fantastic overview of all the research and development efforts in the sector. And last but not least, we also have some of the projects participating here, like of course the one best known under Green Emotion, which is basically an attempt for large-scale demonstrations across Europe. All these projects are there in order to try to learn from the various situations in different regions of Europe and discuss that further with international partners. And one can see that actually it is not one measure, but a set of measures that make the overall promotion of these new vehicles successful. Fiscal measures, very, very clear. Many of the European member states give a premium in terms of VAT rebate or in terms of a rebate on the road tax. Environmental measures, overall setting in terms of emissions at national, European level, but also very important policies dictated in the urban environment, low emission zones, for example, in quite a number of cities. And we indeed see that those type of measures are fantastic promoters of new use of mobility needs, and of course, first and foremost, driven by electric vehicles. Is it for private use, but also more and more for logistics, and also a very clear drive towards the use of more public transport, public buses, built on at least the hybrid technology. Linked to that, a number also of positive discrimination, I would say, that are being used in order to facilitate the use of these vehicles. One could think of smart parking measures that are being put forward in a number of member states, possibilities also with electric vehicles to use reserved bus lanes, and other measures which allow for electric vehicles to have more facility in the urban environment. At the end of the day, I think that, of course, looking at the various objectives that national governments have set 2-3 years ago, we are, quasi in all European countries, a little bit behind schedule. Objectives have been possibly a little bit too ambitious. With the exception, frankly, of Norway, we do indeed see that the market uptake has been slower than one could have expected. This being said, we also see that there is now close to no European country that is not actively contemplating positive measures in order to promote electric vehicles. And this, I think, is a fantastic step forward. When looking at the situation just 2 years ago, when, of course, important countries, which were also those where the manufacturing component was the most present, were, of course, leading, but many European countries did not seriously contemplate alternative fuels, and certainly not electric vehicles. And the fact that we have also come with a legislation which provides for every single European member state to have a national development plan, which includes options for all different alternative fuels in order there to assess the complementarity between those different fuels across the different modes of transport, linked with binding deployment objectives, very important, discussing with the manufacturers in the exhibition area and those who see the results of the first products they have brought to market. We still have the confirmation that without a determined deployment plan for charging stations, the demand response is too weak. One aspect of this is, of course, to provide further confidence there is definitely with many users still somewhat of an anxiety as to the range an electric vehicle can cope with, but also at the end of the day, a very confusing public debate about different standards. All things that do not help the absolute strong confidence that one needs when making such a dramatic change from something we know now for more than a century to something that is just at the initial steps of its development. And this is the reason why we have put forward a text, and we're very happy that we will, in 3 weeks' time, have an agreement on national plans everywhere in Europe, deployment plans with concrete binding targets for deployment of charging infrastructure, and the extremely important question of standards. Slow charging or conventional charging, plug type 2, and for the fast charging, the forthcoming European standard combo, with the possibility for any new charging points for a certain period, which we do not want necessarily to define, to come with possibly a second or even a third standard in order to meet, of course, the customer base that already exists. A number of countries, such as Estonia, for example, the UK to a certain extent, and some others, France for conventional plugs, have made a choice, have already deployed a number of stations, sometimes very significant number of stations, close to a national network, and have built a customer base which of course cannot be left on the side. So for this we're saying we do not want to limit a transition in time, but what is important is that from now on we move towards a single solution which will help us not only to respect one of the fundamental things that we have been building in Europe over the last 50 years, which is an internal single market for mobility, but also that puts us in a stronger position when discussing with our transatlantic friends, with also our Asian friends, the steps towards global standards. Because of course, one will very soon, hopefully, also be in a position to define global standards in order, again, here to give a decisive push to the industry. Now, leaving aside this plug issue, which for me is already a question of the past, more fundamentally, the legislation also allows us to have a tool in order to progressively come with updated standards in different areas. And again, looking at the various stands in the exhibition, one can see that the plug is the most traditional thing, but a lot has still to be done in the communication between the vehicles and the charging points. To have there as well interoperable systems, not tomorrow, I mean now. If people want to buy vehicles, those vehicles are meant to be able to transport people out of the very rigid boundaries of a city. So we do need interoperable standards for those people to be actively in the possibility to charge their vehicles in different locations, cross borders, and also to make the necessary payments. And we do not want necessarily to come into somewhat rigid means like we had invented at the time with the mobile telephony. I think we have learned a lot from the mobile market in order to be in a position also for electric vehicles to invent something much simpler. Much simpler. Technically it's feasible, it's just again a question of people discussing in forums like yours at an advanced stage before actually putting the softwares in the various machines. So at the end, I think that whatever the good ideas across member states, the essentials are proper plans for deployment along a number of years, because that was another problem I think manufacturers faced and all investors faced, with plans that were changing on the basis of the election schedule or on the basis of different considerations, we do need plans over at least the medium term. And that's why, for us, the time horizon is at least 2020. We do want to have a picture of what every single country in Europe will be doing towards 2020 in order to deploy their charging stations. And in this, also looking a little bit at the dynamics. I think when we came with the proposal, there was a very, very clear view on conventional charging posts, although we were not making a differentiation between conventional charging and fast charging. What I see coming actually more quickly than expected is the decisive drive of a number of public actors to go for fast charging across their national territory, which is, I think, a very, very good news for the industry. And probably the major development over the last year is to see that everywhere, no public authority is not at least contemplating a nationwide network based on fast charging. And here again, I think that the questions of the maturity of the technology, the fact that we have a standard, and also the fact that we already have developed some interoperability specifications have helped tremendously in pushing the case that electric vehicles are not confined in the city limits. And that is another, I think, important development over probably the last 18 months. We also see that growingly all actors are looking at this, at electric vehicles, as something that has at least the potential also to be used economically, long distances. And that's another strong reason for us to be, I think, very, very confident in these days. Finally, another aspect remains innovation and research. So you will definitely see at the European level, within the next generation of programs, notably the research program Horizon 2020, a continuous emphasis on research and development. First and foremost, of course, to improve the overall efficiency of the battery and what is linked around the battery. And second, in order to improve the communication between the vehicle and the infrastructure. The Green Vehicle Public-Private Partnership is there to continue, and other programs are already set to be promoted and actually strengthened, since also in terms of financial means, we will also have dramatically stronger figures. But the second aspect which we would like to be more present on is the proper physical deployment here as well of charging stations. We have already made a number of attempts. We have actually some investment schemes based on the Trans-European network. And that is our way at European level to actually promote the development of truly European infrastructure. In this, we have growingly put more emphasis to innovation, and under the label innovation, we are putting a lot more emphasis on charging stations, for other fuels as well, of course, but in the electric vehicle sector, charging posts. And we're very happy to have already a number of schemes, like the largest one for the moment is in the UK. Next month, we will come with the last call for proposal under this current financial programming period, where again, we will earmark quite a significant amount of money, 100 million euros, for deploying charging stations around Europe, around those trans-European corridors, which is another strong manifestation that we see electric vehicles as a true options across the different boundaries of different member states, and not only confined into rigid urban environments. Finally, I guess that we will also be more active internationally, and this is why you will meet a number of Commission officials in these days at this very Congress, because of course for us this Congress is, as I said, the reference in terms to meet with international partners and trying to help also there the producers, the manufacturers, to anticipate the different technological choices and most in particular, of course, standards that will be used in various parts of the world in order there, again, to make sure that we, as swiftly as possible, come to common or at least interoperable standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Onidi. Even it's not time for the question, but I have one which is from Avele. Everybody asks this question. From now until 22 is 7 years, Mr. Onidi. You know better than all of us, technology never stops. During these 7 years, it's possible the new technology as an induction charging comes to the play. Induction static or induction dynamic, which is a solution for the battery as well. We see in Spain, in some town, now they started the dynamic and they run the buses with the dynamic, which somehow is a solution. Is it any plan in the EC for the technology which never stop? We see 20 years what's happening, in 7 years is happening. We go in the way to a standardization, something which is coming new technology. Here we have Qualcomm and with a lot of, as a sponsor, come over here to show this new technology. And some town in Spain, they started and they put the bus to run this technology. Is it any plan for that, or we go in one way, or you have, because until we have the plan from now until 22, we don't see the new technology. This is our question.
Thank you. I think indeed it is absolutely critical to recognize that we're far from the perfect solution, and hence the emphasis we continue to put on research, development, innovation, demonstration. Is it on new charging means, induction? Is it also in terms of different technological solutions for the storage of the electricity, batteries, the fuel cells, etc. But more will be done. We will continue. Again, we have put more funding also available for such research. But it is important that we do not look for the perfect solution before actually driving the deployment. We will learn, of course, from what is being deployed today, but to pay tribute to a number also of investors that have put a lot of means in order to develop new products, in order to start deploying charging stations, we have to go ahead. I think customers also have realized that the current technology offers already quite a number of advantages, even cost efficiency, which is very important in the current environment. And one should not wait for all the different technological solutions to have been tested, brought to maturity, etc., before actually moving forward. And this is why I think it is very comforting to see that throughout the European Union, national governments, investors are engaging actively. And if at the end of the day, new possibilities come forward, I'm sure that the transition will be much easier to be done at that moment than to start investment programs from scratch.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Onidi. And we have the two more blades, which Mr. Pietro Menga is from Italian Association. He's a president and he's a vice president of the AVERE. So he's a chair, and I invite him to bring his 4 partners, come from Norway, from the policy, which is very successful Norway. And thanks to Mr. Oleg, he's coming from the far away to compare. Thank you very much.
get to with us, Mr. Mr. Olaf Everston, Mr. Meongus Sunwood, and Dr. Brian Wine. But just before starting, just a couple of slides and a few words to say. A few words to say, just to stress what has been already said about the market. So where we are, I think we are here at the starting line of the market with our electric car. Many we have seen in the exhibition. And I think that many of these cars are quite angry. You can have an idea looking at that. Because of this long waiting, they are waiting for the shot of the starter. This shot never arrives, or seems to never arrive. As regards Europe, I think that a good chance is offered by the limit of 90 grams of CO2 per kilometers that is posed to the European car industry to the horizon of 2020 as an average of the production for that time. Of course, car industry is very powerful. ICE is very powerful, and there is room for further improvements. They can achieve better efficiency of the motor. They can add investment to reduce rolling resistance, to reduce the weight of the car, to reduce thus the power of the motor, to improve the aerodynamics, and to add additional electricity with hybridization in the IC car, and to get very close to that figure of 95 grams per kilometer. Maybe not 95, maybe 100, maybe 105, but anyway, very close to that. What I think is that anyway, an easier way to get to that point, 95, is to introduce as soon as possible existing electric vehicles, both battery vehicles and plug-in electric vehicles, into the market. We know it would be a good thing because they are unmatched as regards the environmental and the energy qualities. They are matched by any other technology. And we normally express these benefits, their benefits, in terms of CO2 emission, in terms of energy consumption, in terms of local emissions. But we could also express this quality in monetary terms. So it would be more brutal, but anyway, it is quite effective. I have some figure for Italy. It is just an example. And if we consider the amount of money that the country spends to import energy sources to move normal IC cars, plus the money that the country spends for the health diseases caused by local pollution due to cars, and the money to avoid CO2 emissions, we see that in the case of electric vehicles, this money is a half of that regarding the use of IC cars. So with electric vehicles, we could save money, and this is an additional advantage to environmental and energy, and also creating a new car industry. So the rationale would have just to introduce as soon as possible this vehicle into real application into the market. Many things have to be done to get to that goal. One thing is very important, and it is exactly what Mr. Nonidi said, to prepare the recharging infrastructure, to provide standardization and the rules for the model of business and such. But I think also it is necessary to define rules to create the market, to motivate the market, because I think that the only existence of the possibility to recharge, to refill the vehicles is not enough. It's not enough to be a real motivation. We must find a way to convince people to share, to shift from present way of moving in the city to the new one. And this, in a way, remains a goal for the near term, 2020. But if we look forward, more far away, certainly the level of emission permitted to car industry will be much lower, probably just a few tenths of grams per kilometers. And the room for further improvement of the ICE engine is not so large. As far as I know, there would be a room to reduce by further 10 or 15 grams per kilometer, the values that will be reached at 2020. So that means that there will be additional need for electric vehicles in the future. Maybe, hopefully, with better battery than those of today, or plug-in vehicles with their thermal engine filled by hydrogen, by biofuels, and so. To get all this, we need policy. We need policy for the infrastructure, for the research, but mainly, I think, to start the market right now, soon, to motivate people to change the habit, to change towards a new way of mobility. We must move differently in the future, but we have to start now to change their habits. And that's why we have this panel speaking about policy, coming from different regions with different local conditions in terms of presence of oil industry, in terms of presence of car industry, in terms of density of mobility. And I wonder, and I think that these differences translates also in different policy. So I would start with the few. We'll get these results in the end. With Mr. Ola Elvestuen, who is member of the Parliament and chaired the Committee on Energy and Environment in Norway. On the local level, Elvestuen is also a member of Oslo City Council and City Commissioner for the Public Transport and Environmental Affairs. After you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. And thank you for the introduction. See what happens here. That's right. I'm very happy to be here. Now, as I was said, I am chair of the Committee on the Energy and Environment in the Norwegian Parliament. Before that, I used to be the Vice Mayor for the Environment and Transportation in Oslo. So this is a new position. I got this elected just this September. So now I think I'm going to tell you an optimistic story from Norway when it comes to the introduction of zero-emission vehicles and electric vehicles in particular. In Norway, you have today already you have a functioning early market for electric vehicles. Today, if you look at those that buy electric vehicles, those that use them, it is part of the general public, and it's one choice that they make on the daily basis. Not because they're particularly environmentally friendly, but because it's practical for them. And if you look at Norway, what we have done, we have a very good incentive system. And this has been in place now for the last 10 years. Electric vehicles are exempt from all taxes, including also the value-added tax. They have free parking all over the country. They do not have to pay on road charging, on toll booths. They do not have to pay. They also have free ferries, which is a big thing in Norway. They have a lot of ferries where they also can go for free. They can use the bus lanes, and of course you have different public support for building up an infrastructure for the electric vehicles. And this has been in place since 2003. But it is not stopping there. Because I'm happy to be able to say that only last Friday, when we in the Parliament got the agreement for the budget for next year, the incentive system was enhanced. So for next year, you will also have no value-added tax on the leasing of electric cars, and there will be no value-added tax on the buying of batteries for electric cars. So next year, I think that when we get this into place, we are entering a new segment that possibly and probably will make sure that different companies to a larger degree will start using electric cars, and also that you will see that more of the municipalities will use electric vehicles themselves in their daily business. And when you talk about municipalities, I think those are important. Because if you look at Oslo, where I used to be the vice mayor up until this fall, cities and local governments are important. And that's important to say here in Barcelona. Barcelona, that has been such a good example in so many urban development areas throughout the years, and cities can play an important role. So in the city of Oslo, they are putting up local, or you have chargers putting up all over the city. Just now it's about 700. There will be put up 200 more every year. There is a ruling that says that within the city center, at least half of the parking places are to be reserved for electric cars in the years ahead. There's not that many fast chargers yet, but they are coming. The city has also decided that by 2015, all the cars that the city themselves are using are to be emission-free. And there's a decision that was made this year, but they look at the taxis within the city. By 2020, they also are to be emission-free. So there's a true movement, and the cities can play an important role to move the furthering of electric vehicles forward. And I think it's always important that you look at the national level, but it has to play hand in hand with the cities and with local governments to have this organic development that furthers the use of electric cars. And within Oslo now, there's about 3,500 electric cars. In the area, it's about 8,000. So every day now, the amount of electric cars that go through the toll ring around the city is about 2,000–3,000. And it's starting to make an impact. And we look at the west side of the city, because electric cars can use the bus lanes, it is becoming the discussion, how long can they use the bus lanes? Because it's becoming a problem for the buses and the public transportation system. So that is the discussion that we have. And this is the way you can see it. It has to be easy for the general public to find parking spaces. It's easy to have an app where you can find the different areas that are free. And then also you have one small part of the whole incentive system. If you look up in the right corner there, on every license plate of electric cars this is a hydrogen car, but every electric car in Norway has on its license plate is marked with an EL for electric. And every car that's a fuel cell, it runs on hydrogen, they have a HY for hydrogen. That is also one part that makes it easy to know how many electric cars that we have. And it gives results. Today, it's about 16,000 registered electric vehicles in Norway. And if you look at the sales numbers, I think that is what is interesting. In September, 8.6% of all sold cars were electric. And the most sold car in Norway in September were the Tesla Model S. And if you look at the sales numbers in October, it's a little bit less. But the most sold car in Norway in October were the Nissan Leaf. So this shows you that this is not the future. This is what is happening now. And it's about, for the general public, it is about the decision of what kind of car they are to buy when they buy their next car. And I think it also shows that the incentive system has been there since 2003. But it's really just through the last 2–3 years, the sales have taken off. And right now, it is for us to continue this development. It is to build up a national network of fast chargers that we also need so that you can connect the cities better than they are today. And of course, we have to look at, today we have an agreement within the Parliament, and it's a broad agreement to keep the incentive system by 2018. But in my view, as a leader of the committee that I lead in Parliament, it is important to say that we need to keep this incentive system much longer than to 2018. Because what is our goal? I mean, the goal, of course, is to build up Norway as an early market, to be an example, to take a responsibility to lower our own emissions, to lower also and better local pollution within the cities in Norway. But it's also important to be part of a movement where you are developing new technology. And for us, then, it's important not only to be an early market in Norway. What is important is to become a part of a bigger European market. Because it's really only when you start to see a bigger change within the bigger markets, whether it's Germany, it's here in Spain, it's in France or elsewhere, that you will really see that also the technological development will take off. So it's, we will definitely keep this incentive system, and even though it may be altered, there's no doubt, I think, and I think it's a broad agreement, that if you look at the years ahead, electric cars will always have an incentive system that makes them more attractive than the traditional cars will be. And that is something that has to be kept on for years and years ahead. But this is not only about electric cars. It's also about taking the next step into fuel cell technology and with hydrogen powered vehicles. We are planning on also and having a systematic planning so that we can also be an early market when fuel cell cars come into the market in 2, 3, 4 years' time. So they have the same incentive system that electric cars have today. In the Oslo area, there are 4 filling stations for hydrogen, and there are plans also to build up more filling stations in other areas of the country. And of course, this is also one development where you have to be stubborn and keep the policies there until you have a situation where the sales are starting to come. And that's my last slide. There are a project also with hydrogen buses, which is also, I think, that is something that we have to hold on to and keep on also to develop. And I think it's important when you see the filling station to the right there. That is one of the things that I always emphasize, and that is when you are entering a new time, when you are introducing a new technology, when you are starting on something that are going to change the way we move, or they're going to change the way we interact with our vehicles, it's important that things look good. So this is a filling station that is placed outside of Oslo. So with that, I think I will say thank you, and I think it is important for me to Norway is an example that it works, that you can develop a well-functioning market, that you have to be patient when you develop it and believe that this change is coming. I have no doubt that the future when it comes to transportation will be electric, and the next step will be a fuel cell, hydrogen-powered fleet. These are different technologies that will work well together. But it's also important to be impatient, because we have to move this change forward. I mean, just later today, I will move on and go to Warsaw for the COP19 and the negotiations about or the first agreement when it comes to lowering climate change greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, this is to electrify the transportation sector is one essential part if we are to reach our goals about also lowering greenhouse gas emissions. So with that, I will say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weston, I regret there is not the time for a panel discussion, but I have just a question about the so many cars registered so far in Norway. Is that local fiscality plays a role on that?
Yeah, and that, of course, yes. When you are reaching the numbers we are reaching now, it does have an economic influence. But that is part of the will that you need a political will to do this. Yeah. And you need to have a political will until you reach your goal. And the goal, I think, for Norway, it has to be bigger than just the country in itself. I mean, the goal is the common goal that you have to develop. We have to be an early market, but the goal is to be part of a truly European market. So for us, it's important that in the years ahead that we always make sure that electric vehicles are more reasonable and more attractive overall than the traditional cars. But as I say, the success becomes something that you have to deal with. When you have so many cars in the bus lanes that it becomes a problem for public transportation, of course you have to do something. When you have so many electric cars that doesn't pay in the toll booth, then you have to look for other revenue. But this is part of the politics, and this is the part of the job that I have to make. And I think we're dealing with the problems as they come, just as long as you keep the eye on what you are to achieve. I mean, all of this is achievable, and it's possible to get around.
Yes, it's what in my mind I consider to give a motivation.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we are to do away with fossil fuels. That is the big goal, and this is just the first steps on the road to do away with fossil fuels.
Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Professor Sandwood of. Oh yes, in the order you are the second. Sorry, in my list it is the contrary. Dr. Brian Wire is president of EDTA, the Electric Dry Transportation Association of the Americas, and he is very expert in EVS. I think he attended, I don't know how many electric vehicle symposium. I also would like to announce that Brian has been put on the top list of one of the most influential people in the electric vehicle market this year or last year, I don't remember. I read it in a newspaper, and I find it a very important thing to be announced.
That was very kind of you to notice, Pietro. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to be back in front of this audience again. Since we last met in Los Angeles, I see a lot of friends that I haven't seen since then. So it's great to see you all gathered once again. It's really such a unique 18 months goes by and we come back together and we have more political support, we have more technology, we have more vehicles. It's really delightful to do this in different parts of the world. And I wonder if the fact that we were in Stavanger the last time we were in Europe might not have had something to do with some of the success in Norway. Not to take anything away from our previous speaker, who obviously started in advance of that in 2003. So really stunning success there. We too are beginning to see some of the results of policy in the U.S. With HOV lanes and carpool lanes getting a little too crowded with vehicles and so forth. So lots of very, very good things to talk about today. Just so that you know, EDTA is designed as a very, very broad and cross-industry association because, as we can see from this event, it really takes many people from many different industries coming together. What we're trying to do is not just make better cars. What we're trying to do is electrify transportation and change the way we use energy around the planet. So that takes a lot of different expertise. It takes a lot of industrial might. It takes tremendous focus on the part of policymakers. EDTA as an industrial organization goes across industry by design. And as you can see from this slide, we have a really who's who of industry working together. Not always a happy board table, sometimes a little bit of tension around that board table, but indeed a very, very productive coalition altogether. I, too, am optimistic. I want to pull that theme from our previous speaker through. I'm optimistic because every year we have better and better cars coming into the market at different price points. So the objective here, although it goes certainly beyond cars as demonstrated, the objective is to provide the consumer with options here. And electric drive is such a good technology for purposes of configuring to drivers' needs. It can be a pure electric vehicle, which would work for many of us in the United States. The vast majority of Americans don't drive more than 40 miles a day. It can be a plug-in hybrid, which is partially electric and uses the technology that's essentially become mainstream now in many countries and certainly in the United States for hybrid technology. It could be a range-extended vehicle, as we've seen. We have several examples of that out on the show floor, including the brand-new i3 from BMW, which I got a chance to drive last week, and it was very exciting. So more and more vehicles coming into the market means that we have more choices for consumers. And I'm optimistic, too, when I look at these numbers. If you look at what we've done over the last couple of years here, these are cumulative sales, but this is exactly what you want to see. You want to see an accelerating growth curve. Don't forget, we didn't start that long ago with plug-in technology. So I think the fact that we continue to see greater and greater sales year on year, right now we're up 103% total sales over last year, and that's a very, very good sign indeed. Also, infrastructure. We've been discussing infrastructure here today. One of the things that also makes me very optimistic is the fact that every plug is essentially a charging station. In many respects, what we're finding is that those people who are driving electric vehicles, plug-in electric vehicles, are all charging them at home. It might just be a light socket somewhere out in their driveway, or it may be a level 2 charger or something more sophisticated than that. We also have growing public stations in the United States. These are Department of Energy numbers, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this in great detail throughout the conference. This is a policy forum, so I wanted to tag up on the fact EDTA has been, over the years, primarily a policy organization. We, I think, have been very successful in the United States, perhaps not as aggressive as Norway in juxtaposition, but very successful in getting essentially tax credits that reduce the market barriers that every technology faces when it enters the market. It always tends to be at a price premium when it comes into the market. We're already starting to see those price premiums come down. We're on a faster curve coming down for battery technology, which is helping the price of the vehicles, et cetera. But we're also moving this down into the state level and so forth. Most of the conversations that we're having indeed today beyond the federal level are with municipal authorities, which was also mentioned. Agree, very important R&D continues to keep going so that we make our batteries more energy dense and so forth, and work on these public-private partnerships. Billions of dollars being spent by companies represented in this room, leveraging some of the money that's being put in by governments. Very, very important. And key will be regulatory harmonization. I think the points that have been made here, and this is a perfect forum to make them, is that we need to work across international boundaries to make certain that we harmonize. It turns out the consumer has an important role to play here. So what we've discovered is that when people get in these cars and drive these cars, they buy the cars to an extremely high level because they're really fun cars to drive. So it's really a function of getting people into the cars, raising their awareness so that they look for the cars, and as more and more of their neighbors come home and say, and they see their neighbor plugging in their car, the questions will get asked, the questions will get answered, and eventually, as I do, and I'm sure many of you do, we invite people to get in the cars and drive the cars, and they're sold. So the key thing that I've found is that everyone that drives electrically has a tremendous passion for it, right? So the key is to connect that passion to something else that people feel passionate about. At EDTA, we launched a foundation very recently. Some of our leaders are here in this audience to figure out ways of getting a message, a very simple message out in the marketplace. Electric cars are fun to drive. These are cars that will outperform the car that you currently drive, and you'll enjoy it. You'll actually enjoy driving again. You'll actually be able to hear your radio, for example, and all of the technology you wish will be in those cars. But we wanted to get some help in getting that message out. So we started working with people in the biggest marketing vertical of all, which of course is sports. Any sports fans in the audience? Go ahead, shout them out. Who are you a fan of? I'm a Washington Capitals fan. Anybody? Come on, wake up out there. Let me hear it. Who do you feel passionate about? What sports team? There we go. Thank you. I knew it'd be somebody from Spain. All right, terrific. So, you know, the idea here is people already feel passionate about their sports team. So let's take that message and let's put it up on the Jumbotron in the stadium. But more importantly, it turns out that people who are in this particular vertical, they have a concern about their carbon footprint as well. They want to make sure that the trash that's being used, that the electricity that's being used, or the trash that's being created, and the electricity that's being used, and the cars that people are driving to their stadiums to see their events, that these things are all getting greener and greener and greener. It turns out electric drive plays an important role in that. We were embraced by the Green Sports Alliance. This is probably not known to many of you. I'm not a big Atlanta Falcons fan, but this is an American football team. And basically what we're doing is we're working with these sports teams to do two things. One, figure out how to help them future-proof their stadiums. They want to be leaders in their communities. They want to show that they have a concern about the environment and are doing the right thing for their environment. So let's help them put in the charging stations and encourage their fans to actually use their charging stations. The more people see these things, the better. The second thing we're doing is we're putting that Fun to Drive message up on the Jumbotron so that people can see it. We're getting more and more sports stars to get in the cars and drive the cars. And I just want to end today with, I think, something that, you know, certainly gets me excited, and we hope we'll get the fans excited and hopefully you excited as well if my video will work for me here.